Special report, Bret Baier. He is Fox News chief political anchor. Bret, so a lot jumps out at me from that reporting that we just heard. Let me start with this idea of Carter Page now not testifying and that it's Democrats who don't want him to get out there and talk. What do you make of that?
Well, we don't know yet, Melissa, why he has been postponed indefinitely from testifying. One, either they don't have all the things they thought they were going to have to question him. Two, they question him and his usefulness as a source or for testimony. But three, and probably most likely, Bob Mueller may have said to the committee, pull back, don't do this now. Let me do this investigation. We don't know which one of those it is, but we do know the Democrats were chomping at the bit to have Carter Page testify.
Yeah. And, you know, on a broader theme, we've heard so many versions of this story between Jared Kushner and the Russians and who did what, when, and what they were really going to talk about. You know, if you hear from John Kelly, he seems to think, I don't know, maybe that's not that significant. Listen, tell me what you think.
Any channel of communication, back or otherwise, with a country like Russia is a good thing. It doesn't bother me. I mean, you just have to assume, obviously, that what you're getting is may or may not be true. They may be working you, but that's the whole point. I mean, then that communication then goes into the White House as a data point in terms of discussion. So I don't see a big deal.
So he works for the Trump administration, but at the same time, I mean, he is the head of Homeland Security. Is this whole story a nothing burger? What do you think?
Well, definitely, they're saying it is. You had H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, saying essentially the same thing. Back channels are set up all the time. The Homeland Security Secretary, as you said, publicly saying that. And then we have the reporting of Catherine Herridge and Chris Wallace and sourcing, unnamed sources, saying that it was not Kushner's idea to have a back channel. It was the Russians, and that the discussion was about Syria and their concerns about on the ground, and that it leaked from the Russia side as far as this story is concerned. I should point out that President Trump today, Kevin mentioned the list of tweets he had. He also had about whenever you see the word sources say in the fake news media, they don't mention names. It's very possible those sources don't exist, but are made up fake news writers. Fake news is the enemy. He did retweet the story that we just mentioned, which was an unnamed source from the White House talking about Kushner and not being behind the back channel. So, listen, we're going to report this on all sides, but it is important to take a breath here and see exactly, you know, what is being talked about before some of this breathless reporting has happened throughout, weeks on end.
Yeah. So moving out to the idea of style now, you have the president coming back from what by almost all accounts was a very successful trip overseas. Some people saying, you know, it was tightly scripted, that he wasn't answering questions. There were all these reasons why it seemed to have fewer bumps than, you know, what we had been seeing before that. Do they move away from that strategy now that they're back? You might think so, given the tweets. What's your bet? What are you hearing?
Listen, he did not tweet a lot on that trip, and he was busy doing things, meeting with leaders, making deals, and that was the White House, and the operation was moving very well. I do think that there is a consensus that Twitter sometimes does get this president in trouble, and that this communication staff is juggling to respond to a tweet that they didn't know was coming. So that is an issue and something that maybe these White House changes are going to address. One more thing on the Russia investigation quickly, Melissa, is that there are some people we talk to up on the Hill and throughout this town that say if the campaign was colluding with the Russians all along, why would it be so important for Jared Kushner to set up a back channel in December?
It's true.
I mean, wasn't the channel already there? And, you know, those are all fair points as you look at this from 30,000 feet. This White House is trying to get back on track legislatively and talk about, you know, good things that potentially are going to happen.
Right, and so a lot of people say along that line, maybe a little bit less tweeting since that worked. I mean, maybe he didn't want to pay for international roaming. That is really expensive for the Twitter with the data. But now we're back, I'm kidding, of course, now we're back at the White House, and we're wondering about Sean Spicer coming back out to the podium. It's been 2 weeks since he was there. At the same time, we know that the communications director is stepping down. What do you make of those changes? There he is right there, Michael Dubke.
Yeah. Well, I think that that there are probably more changes from everything we hear from the White House. It is interesting that Sean Spicer is back out, or will be momentarily, there at the briefing in the White House. It was thought that Sarah Huckabee was going to be front and center. You know, so I think we have to take things one day at a time with this White House as far as the moves that they make. But all indications are there will be others coming in. And perhaps Corey Lewandowski, perhaps Dave Bossie, in some kind of communications response team that can answer some of these questions.
Brett, I mean, you are a master of the media. You've watched this game be played through all different administrations. This idea that the team isn't pushing back enough against what they call fake news stories or the Russia stories, it feels like, especially when you watch the rancor in the press room, they're pushing back. I mean, is that what they're not doing enough of, or explain that to us?
Well, you know, it depends. I mean, sometimes it's the chicken and the egg. You know, who is spurring on the coverage? Is the tweet about that it's all fake, you know, adding to the coverage of this as they start to come out for the White House briefing?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yes,
Sean
we will
Spicer,
see
though.
right now, in fact. Brett Baer, thank you so much. Let's listen into Sean Spicer.